New York Attorney General Letitia James, Senator Adam Schiff, Special Counsel Jack Smith, former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Director James Comey. What do they all have in common? Well, all have played key roles in investigations into Donald Trump, and all are now legal targets of the president's Justice Department as his revenge tour escalates. Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance. New York Times correspondent Glenn Thrush is with us as well, and Michael Shearer is still with us. All right, Glenn, what's happening here? Why is Donald Trump, what justification is he using to investigate these people?
Well, let's talk about the surface versus the real justification. And I'll start with the real justification, which is exactly the same as what we saw today with the takeover of the D.C. police. We are in a perma-war standing with Trump. He must initiate crises. He must go on the attack against his perceived enemies. He must attempt to keep his coalition together in the face of disintegrating forces, the Epstein issue, and also the incursion of the midterms, which is going to essentially render him some kind of a lame duck president. So we have that as his deeper motive. Superficially, what he's attempting to do is to use some of the auspices of the Department of Justice, particularly this extremely vague weaponization task force that he has given to Ed Martin, the former interim U.S. attorney in D.C., who was rejected by Republican senators for being too extreme, to look into some of his enemies. We have been told that it is for the purpose of convening a grand jury, but we have not seen any evidence yet of subpoenas or any specific investigative activity. But the goal here, and this is where this is different than almost any other administration, frankly, any administration I've covered in my lifetime, and I think going back several lifetimes, is these investigations, these probes are leaked typically to Fox News and become part of the public domain. And Ed Martin, the aforementioned Ed Martin, has said publicly that the goal of these investigations, legitimate goal of these investigations, isn't just to bring an indictment or achieve a conviction, but to name and shame those people that he has targeted.
Joyce, what do you make of that, the naming and the shaming goal here?
So naming and shaming is explicitly something that prosecutors don't do. And under the rules of ethics that govern all DOJ prosecutors, you only go to the grand jury to seek an indictment if you believe that you've got the evidence that you would need in court to get a conviction. I think, Katie, it's really difficult increasingly to express how shocking this is. This is the complete weaponization of the Justice Department for political purposes. You know, during Trump's first term in office, we talked about not wanting to become a banana republic, because in banana republics, criminal prosecution becomes a tool that a powerful dictator or chief executive can use to intimidate his enemies. And we seem to be at that point now.
Let me play a little bit of Abby Lowell talking about what Donald Trump is doing. He says he makes George Orwell's 1984 look like a nursery rhyme.
You know, when I read that, you have to think that the famous author George Orwell, who wrote 1984, that coined the famous phrase of doublespeak and the state saying things opposite of what it means. His book, now, what President Trump and the people who carry out his mandate, it makes George Orwell's 1984 look like a Mother Goose nursery rhyme. I mean, it is just beyond comprehension, and we can't get inured to it, Ali. If you can have the presidency go against the people who use the courts of law to find him wrong when he was wrong, then they have taken this idea of retribution to places that, as I pointed out before, the authors like George Orwell would have never dreamed in their worst nightmares.
You know, it's interesting because I know we know Abby Lowell more recently from representing Hunter Biden, but, you know, not so long ago, he came to national attention by Trump world ties, by representing Jared Kushner. And now you have Abby Lowell come out and say that Donald Trump is running roughshod over the DOJ. And as, you know, Joyce was saying, doing things that prosecutors and the Justice Department is not supposed to do, naming and shaming, making George Orwell look like a nursery rhyme.
Lowell's job right now is he's left his firm. He's at a different firm. He's basically filing lawsuits against the Trump administration for a living. So I'm not surprised he's saying that. I think the irony that has to be pointed out here is that this stuff outraged Donald Trump or the allegations of this kind of behavior outraged Donald Trump during the Biden years. He was constantly haranguing the Biden administration for the prosecutions of him, saying they were politically motivated, saying that that was deeply unethical, totally wrong, an outrage. He was rallying his supporters around it. I'm not surprised he's using the Justice Department as his own law firm now. It was telegraphed then, but the switch in terms of the actual principle of the matter is pretty astounding to see. That on the one hand, the allegation that somehow he was being signaled out because he had political potency at the ballot box, and now he's using the same tactics he accused Democrats of using against his enemies. I think there's going to be a big question in the midterms in 2028 about whether this path is the one the American people want to go down, because we all see where it leads.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll only get worse and worse. And it's very possible that the next person who wins the presidency is saying, yeah, I'm going to get the other guys back better this time than before, or they'll say, no, we're going to stop this, and that'll rally the American people around them.
I don't want to open a can of worms because we're with limited time, but it does also now raise the question of what Donald Trump will do in 2026 if he loses the House or the Senate, and the groundwork that he might be laying to claim that that was rigged now as well. But we will leave that for another day. We have some time. Michael, you're staying with us. Thank you. Joyce and Glenn, thank you so much for joining us today.